Hey guys, what's going on? It's Wolf King here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a video on Star Wars the prequels and why you shouldn't hate them. Alright, so today what I'm going to be talking about, just so you guys know, there is a faction of Star Wars fans, very dedicated Star Wars fans, that actually have a strong dislike for the prequel movies. And I think that it's a little unjustifiably so. I think that the main reason why these fans choose to dislike the prequels is just because they love the original three so much that they refuse to like the prequels for what they are. And today, what I'm just hoping to do is try and shed some light on that and maybe make those movies a little more enjoyable for those type of people. Now, I myself, I love all of the Star Wars movies. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I actually can remember watching the VHS of the original three Star Wars that my uncle gave me over and over again as a child, and I have a lot of love for this movie series, and I'm a very passionate fan. So that's what led me to make this video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to be talking about the original three movies and what they do right. A few things that aren't so great about those original three movies that I think people kind of overlook because they love them so much. And then I'm going to talk about the prequels and some of the things that people seem to really dislike about them, and hopefully just shed some light on those things and kind of change your perspective on them, and maybe you'll be able to appreciate them a little bit more the next time you watch them. So I hope you guys enjoy this video.
Alright, so I wanted to start out with talking about the original three movies, and specifically talking about some of the things that make those movies so great that the prequels don't exactly have. And then I wanted to talk about a few things that people tend to overlook, some of the bad parts of the movie, I guess you could say. Not that they're really bad, I just think that us as Star Wars fans being so passionate, the original three movies, we tend to love them so much that we've grown to even love the little kinks that are somewhat ridiculous, that some people, if you were watching the movie for the first time, would go, well, what's going on here? And I'm not talking about any type of visual effect. I would never hate on a movie for its visual effects, especially one that was made 20 years to its newer version, but more so the actual plot points and some of the acting errors that are actually in that movie. So first off, let's talk about the good things that the movie does that the prequels just don't have. And the first thing I'm going to say is there's no Harrison Ford in the prequels. It's very sad, but Harrison Ford is a once-in-a-generational actor. Many of us just love his acting in the first three movies, and every time he just comes at it with such passion and such this cool ass acting that he does that just makes the movies so beloved, and it just wouldn't be the same without him. And the prequels definitely don't have any type of character that give off that Harrison Ford type of impression. So that's something that we could all see lacking in the prequels. Next, I want to talk about is Luke himself. We all love Luke, and the thing that we all tend to love about Luke is that typical daydreamer that we all have inside of us, to look up at the stars and hope for something to take us out of our daily lives into something more adventurous. And I think we all can appreciate that, and he always has these like boyish moments where he always seems to just make the right decision. He's your typical makes all the right decision movie hero. Something that Anakin just doesn't seem to have, which I think Anakin is more of a realistic hero. Someone, I guess you'd call him an anti-hero, but it's not the same. And some of the examples I want to give is that first off, Luke, in the very first movie, A New Hope, when his aunt and uncle die, he almost shows little to no emotion in this scene. And Anakin is the exact opposite. When his mother dies, he's so filled with rage, he goes to murder her killers. And that's something that you just would never see Luke doing that Anakin does. Anakin carries this passion in his heart for it. And I think that's something that people just overlook, that Luke, it's just unrealistic the way Luke goes about that scene. And that's one of the flaws that I think we all just tend to overlook. Also, Luke tends to be a little bit whiny in these movies. He
take these two over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
He's always doubting Yoda, for example, saying things like, you expect the impossible, refusing to listen to his elders. Even him giving shit to Harrison Ford when he goes and says he has to pay off debts, and Luke responding with, well, looking out for yourself is what you do best, I guess, even though when you really think about it, Han has murderers, bounty hunters coming after his head, and if he wasn't on the planet Hoth, where he was way out of the way, he would have probably been murdered already. And that's something very hard to live with for probably anyone. And Luke is so quick to give him shit, even though he's already, saved his life. So I definitely think Luke can be a bit whiny throughout the original 3 prequels. And that's something I also think we tend to overlook with the original movies. Another flaw that I wanted to point out, and this is going to be the last one for the original 3 movies, is the actual plot points of those movies. Now, there's not a lot of plot holes in the movies themselves, but the overall flow from the first to third movie is a little bit off, and we all kind of sensed it the first time we watched through, like, oh, Leia is his sister when she's pretty much making out with him in the first movie or the second movie, right? And that's because George Lucas actually made these decisions last minute, so that's why they come at such a surprise. It wasn't as if he intended that from the very beginning. He might have been like, oh, maybe I'll go that way, but it wasn't something he intended from the very beginning. Also, with Darth Vader being Luke's father, that wasn't something that he had intended from the start. It was actually something he made as a last minute. He actually played around with a lot of endings and felt like that was the best to go with. So some of those surprises or twists, I wouldn't much as call them twists, because it wasn't an intended purpose from the very beginning. It's almost lazy writing, I guess, even though it turned out to be great in the long run. So I'm not hating on it too much. I'm just saying it is something to think about when you're comparing the movies. And also, the first and third movie, the blowing up of the Death Star is the ending of the movie. They have the same exact plot for those 2 movies. And though there is differences in them, still it almost feels empty to me that throughout all 3 of the original movies, it's just blowing up the Death Star twice. And it's something that I've grown to love and I'm all right with. But definitely, like, when I originally were watching these movies, or even when I think about them, it's almost lazy that they just went for the same ending, almost like they didn't know what to do. But that's enough for me bashing, I guess, on the original 3 movies. I love them so much. I really hate to do it. But I just wanted to give you guys a little, just something to think about when you're comparing these movies, to see that the original 3 movies aren't, all knowing, I guess. They're not the greatest movies when it comes to like plot or the best ever, even though they are some of the best movies ever made, but they do have their flaws. And I think it makes it a little easier to accept for the prequels when you're talking about what's good with them and their flaws. So let's go ahead and move over to the prequels. And I wanted to touch on a few things, first off, that a lot of people hate in those movies, and then I'm going to try and go ahead and make it more justifiable, maybe make it so that people can accept it a little more, and maybe look at these flaws with a new set of eyes. So the first thing I'm going to say about the prequels that almost everyone is unanimously hating is Jar Jar Binks. Now listen, Jar Jar Binks is not a great character and definitely deserves the shit he gets. And it was definitely just a ploy by them to draw kids into the movie series, which is, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, it's an adult movie. It's definitely made for adults, but I'm all right with it. We want to get the younger generations involved in the passion that we all have for Star Wars. But Jar Jar Binks, we all pretty much unanimously agree that he was just thrown in for kids, and he's quite annoying in the movies. Over the years, I've come to accept him, and he doesn't really bother me all that much anymore. But I did want to do a little comparison between Jar Jar Binks and the Ewoks, because those are the things that really annoy people when it comes to the original 3 movies. A lot of people get annoyed by the Ewoks, including myself, and then a lot of people get annoyed by Jar Jar Binks. But to do a little compare and contrast here, at least Jar Jar Binks has some goddamn character development. I mean, look at him. He goes from someone who was banished from his home city to being someone higher up in the Galactic Senate. He actually becomes a pretty important person in the galaxy, whereas the Ewoks just kind of destroyed the Empire with sticks and twigs, and they're just utterly annoying. I hate their presence in the movie. So I just thought I'd give a little compare and contrast there. And also, there is a theory, I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but that Jar Jar Binks is actually a Sith Lord. I wouldn't say Sith Lord, but he's a dark Jedi. And that actually he was manipulating the Jedi and Padme from the very beginning. And when he's constantly falling over and seeming to be an idiot, that's actually just a martial arts called Drunken Fist. Now, do I put a lot of thought into this? Do I really think that this is something that's a possibility? Absolutely not. But it is something fun to think about. They even go as far to point out that Jar Jar Binks has these little hand gestures he makes when he talks all the time, and that he might actually be using Jedi mind tricks. I mean, when you really think about it, he goes from being, like I said, all the way up into the Galactic Senate from where he starts. That's a pretty dramatic change for characters, even for someone that had a big role in the original movie. So you can definitely see that might have played into it, that this whole time he might have just been playing everybody, pretending to be the idiot, making it all that much easier to manipulate the Jedi. Like I said, I don't take it seriously at all, but it definitely is something fun to think about when it comes to Jar Jar Binks. So the next thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to the prequels that people tend to automatically hate is Anakin himself. First off, as a child, yes, the acting of the child actor was not the greatest, but I tend to not hate on it. I really didn't have that much of a problem with it really ever, but I can see how other people may have had a problem with it. And I also can definitely see where people wish that they would have just never started with him as a child at all. And the putting in of midichlorians really diminishes the value of like anyone being able to be a Jedi. So I can definitely understand people hating on those aspects, and I really don't have any justification for them. But I will say, as Anakin grows into a young adult, that a lot of people tend to hate on him because he's not your typical Jedi. He thinks he's more of a free thinker. He has these real emotions that he has to deal with, and he's not able to just forsake them as other Jedis do. And I won't say if that's wrong or right, but what I will say is that I can definitely understand him. And I think that one of the things that people really hate on when it comes to Anakin is in the final movie when him making this dramatic jump into, killing young Padawans in the Jedi Temple and becoming this Sith Lord, like almost, it's a very quick transition that some people don't really appreciate, where I myself, I very much understand it and appreciate it. And I'm one of the people who actually enjoys it. I really like it. And I'm going to go ahead and give some examples and try and break it down to make it a little more understandable for people. So first off, Anakin throughout the entirety of the movie I'm talking about the last movie, is seeing that the Jedi Council has been doing some otherwise shady shit that they really shouldn't be doing, spying on Emperor Palpatine. They're making decisions on their own, just kind of, there's a war going on, so they think that they can make these exceptions. They put Anakin onto the Jedi Council, but they're really just doing it as a giant fuck you to him because they want him to spy on Emperor Palpatine, which has never been done before. And he feels very wronged for this because not only did they kind of make his dream laughable when he wanted to join the council, which he was definitely more powerful enough to be able to do so, maybe not wise enough, but definitely powerful enough, is that they also expect him to spy on his best friend, someone that has almost raised him from the time of being a child and has given him much guidance. I would say even more guidance than some of the Jedi Council have. I think it would have been very easy for them to counsel him and take a moment to explain things to him and make it easier to understand. But instead of doing that, they expect him to blindly obey, which I can definitely understand Anakin having these mixed feelings about them lately, especially with this war going on. And then to find out that his best friend, Emperor Palpatine, is actually the Sith Lord that everyone's been looking for, it kind of throws his whole perception of good and evil into question. And he really doesn't know how to feel about this, but he still goes and does the right thing and tells the Jedi Council what he has found out and let them handle this situation. He does come to help, but in the end, Mace Windu wants to kill Emperor Palpatine without a trial, which is definitely something you wouldn't expect the Jedi to do, which I don't fault Anakin for. He's very confused in that moment where he's having the teachers that have been seeming ever more shady throughout these movies and his best friend from childhood battling it out. And Emperor Palpatine has told him that if he was to help him, that he would be able to prevent Padme from dying. And that's a huge turning point in that movie, is that when he tells him that if he were to join him, that he would be able to give him the power to be able to stop Padme from dying, who he loves more than anything. So he ends up deciding to save the Emperor and work for him, which is something that I can really understand, because when you look at all the facts, not only is he helping a friend from childhood to survive, but he's also going against the Jedi who have been doing things that you wouldn't expect Jedis to do. He's also telling him that he's going to give him the power to be able to prevent death, and that he is going to be able to reshape the galaxy in his image, something that he has been talking about throughout all three of these, well, not all three, but at least two movies. You have to remember that Anakin grew up as a slave and that he wants to rid that from the galaxy. Now, does this work out in his favor? He's not really able to do what he envisions, but that's more because things just happen that, well, he almost dies and he gets really corrupted with the dark side, but his intentions are not that bad. And another thing that happens to him is when he goes to the Jedi Temple to kill the Padawans, a lot of people tend to give him shit for this, and this is something that is just really a dramatic change and something that he might have not done. But at the end of the day, what you have to understand, and a lot of you won't agree with me, and that's fine, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. At the end of the day, those are child soldiers. The Jedi, the young Padawans at the temple, regardless of what you want to think about them, that they're good, bad, evil, whatever, is that those are definitely child soldiers, and they are growing up learning to, murder and fight in these wars and become warriors. So if he thinks that they've been corrupted, from his perspective, he thinks that the Jedi are corrupting these youths into becoming mindless soldiers. And I won't go ahead and justify murder in any sense for anyone, especially children, but I will say that it is an understandable circumstance that not only was he killing child soldiers, but he was doing it for the greater good of the entire galaxy, that he thought he was going to be able to reshape it. He even tells Padme that we can get rid of the Emperor at any time and reshape it as we see fit to be able to make real change and kind of cut through the politics. Because as we are seeing through all three movies, that the politics of the galaxy is really corrupt, and that shows when Emperor Palpatine is able to gain so much power through the Senate, and that Anakin wishes to just cut through that and make real change, which is something that I can definitely see and understand. I'm not so much justifying it as just being able to show you guys that you should be able to understand that at the end. So I hope that helps you guys see Anakin in a little bit different of a light the next time that you watch those movies, and maybe Jar Jar Binks. And I know some of the other things that people have problems with, just some of the CGI, like how Yoda's CGI and he's flipping all over the place. Obviously, if you don't like that, it's just because you love the old Yoda, because it's obviously badass. A lot of the fighting, some people will go as far to say, like, oh, it's too much lightsaber battles and too much CGI. Well, that's how the movies would have been originally done if they had the technology back then, which they obviously didn't. So I know that, 90% of the Star Wars community appreciates that for what it is. And I, of course, myself love the lightsaber battles. That's what I'm all about. And I thought the CGI Yoda was really cool, and the battles were always on point for me. The choreography in all the battles in all the prequel movies were just amazing. The Darth Maul battle in particular, just really amazing. And everyone can love that. I'd say the only other thing about like the prequels to the original three movies is the overall feel to those movies is a little bit different. You can definitely tell there was a little bit more love and care made into the original threes, because I mean, let's face it, they had to take a lot more time to develop those movies and just constantly critique themselves when making it. I mean, when George Lucas originally made those movies, and when he showed it to his director friends, before he had edited in the CGI or whatever they had for CGI, he would just, like, for the space battle parts, he just had like little old war videos of like bombers and planes like fighting in the air for those parts, and he obviously had that vision and he took a lot of care, whereas in this one he could just throw, CGI and really do whatever he wanted to. But I mean, for me, like I said, I love all the Star Wars movies. I'm really looking forward to the new movies. I hope you guys are too. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of this video, what you think of this analysis, and what's your own personal opinion on the original 3 versus the prequels, and what do you think about the new 3 movies that are coming out? Do you think they're going to be better? Do you think they're going to be worse? What do you think? All right, guys, let me know, and until next time, guys, just keep loving Star Wars.